Meanwhile, candidate David Soknacki, he's grabbing headlines with a new idea to help relieve downtown congestion. And David joins us now from our Toronto Centre. And David, if you wanted to come to our studios, which are right downtown Toronto, and park on the street, should you be mayor, you'd be getting a ticket because you want to ban that kind of parking. Would it extend to where you are now in sort of the King Street East area?
Well, I think, first of all, just so your viewers know, there is on-site parking at Toronto Sun Studios, so thank you very much.
That's true, yes.
That's absolutely great. But yes, what we want to do is make sure that the traffic moves in our core. And to I guess take away a little more of from the headline, it's going to be over a term, going to be after consultation. But you're right, in an area of the downtown core, I think it's important that we take a look at how to get people moving, because that in fact is what gridlock is all about. And we want to make sure that we have our roads for actually public use rather than just storing chunks of metal. And so let's take a look at our main arteries in the downtown core. I suggest no parking on those arterial roads, and I suggest over a term what we'll do is we'll first take a look and figure out which are the main ones that we need to remove parking from. It'll also give the time for consultation, also time to make sure the infrastructure catches up. And David, by that I mean a time for off-street parking to get built.
Let me put this to you, as someone who believes that generally speaking there can be ways, if you through tax incentives, fines, fees, whatever, you can change people's behavior. And how about this, just making people pay more for on-street parking or a graded pay system? Can you solve it through that? And then who knows, that may also help a little bit for the Treasury at City Hall. But
don't you think that's what will happen, David? Because what we're going to end up doing is boosting demand. 4 or 8 of those lots, off-street lots in the core, are owned by the Toronto Parking Authority. So I would think that they would see increased demand, but I would also think that other operators will see the opportunity for building lots, perhaps multi-story lots. So there is opportunity there.
So in other words, get them off the street, and then you say the private sector, the opportunity is there for you. You can make a buck if you build some parking facilities in the downtown core.
Yes, but it's also more than that. I think it's an opportunity to reimagine those spaces, because let's face it, it's public real estate. And it's limited public real estate. So what I've said is that let's figure out whether or not it's best for cars, if best to have those lanes for cars, best if perhaps we want to have some bike lanes there, or even I've heard a number of comments about merchants feeling at risk or under the microscope. Maybe it might be a good idea to expand some sidewalks. There's lots of ways that we can reimagine that public real estate.
It may seem to a non-Toronto resident or someone who doesn't go to Toronto a lot that we're focusing on some minutiae. I'm talking about Ontario Street where you are, and Adelaide right behind here. But in the big picture, cars apparently, I've seen some studies, were important in the last election, and then if you owned a car and commuted in, you were much more likely to vote for the guy who won, Rob Ford, who was seen to be the champion of the car or the car driver, as opposed to other candidates may have been more focused on public transit. So I asked you to say, these are people in the suburbs, the Etobicoke and the Yorks, etc., who need to use cars to get downtown to work. Are you worried that this will annoy them possibly, or is this something you think will appeal to somebody in Etobicoke and sort of the Yorks of the world?
Well, David, let's again, for full disclosure, I live in Scarborough and I own 2 cars myself.
Okay.
But this is for people to get around, and it's for motorists to get around as well as transit users and pedestrians and cyclists. So those roads are public real estate. They're for all of us to get around. I would think that once we figure out how to implement this sort of recommendation, that the motorists who need to go downtown, whether it's for a dialysis appointment or to pick up a new pair of shoes, will be able to get to where they're going faster.
David Soknacki running for mayor. Race is a long one, still lots to go, but that's a pretty interesting idea. Thank you so much for telling us about it.
Thanks, David.
All right.